Fact 50. Some landscapes exist because dust falls faster than it erodes. In places like the Loess Plateau, wind-blown dust accumulated so steadily that it formed thick, uniform soil layers. The particles compact in a way that allows near-vertical cliffs to stand without collapsing. The terrain exists because deposition outpaced erosion for thousands of years. Fact 49. Mirror lakes are caused by near-zero wind conditions. Earth has so-called mirror lakes, where mountains, clouds, or skies reflect perfectly on the water, but only when wind speed drops below a critical threshold. Lake Matheson in New Zealand and Moraine Lake in Canada are famous for these glass-like reflections, but the effect only works in the early morning when wind speed is near zero. At the microscopic level, the lake surface remains completely smooth. Without wind, the water behaves like a natural mirror, producing near-perfect symmetry that photographers travel thousands of miles to capture. Fact 48. Certain lakes can suddenly release deadly gas. Some deep lakes trap large amounts of dissolved gases like carbon dioxide or methane beneath stable layers of water. If that balance is disturbed, the gas can erupt upward in a rare event called a limnic eruption. Lake Kivu is closely monitored because it contains large quantities of trapped gas. Fact 47. Vatican City has its own railway station that almost nobody uses. Vatican City, the world's smallest country, contains a 300-meter railway line built in 1934 that connects directly to Italy's network. While once purely ceremonial and restricted to rare papal departures, the station's empty reputation is now a bit of a relic. While it once transported only a handful of popes in a century, it transitioned in 2014 to hosting a regular weekly tourist service to Castel Gandolfo. It remains the world's shortest national rail system, and while it's no longer abandoned, it still holds the title for the most exclusive boarding pass in Europe. Fact 46. France's longest border isn't in Europe. While most assume France's longest border is shared with Spain or Germany, it is actually with Brazil. French Guiana, an overseas department in South America, shares a 730-kilometer border with Brazil through the Amazon rainforest. This makes France the only European nation with a land border in South America, meaning the European Union technically shares a land frontier with the Brazilian wilderness. Fact 45. Some coastlines erode from air pressure, not just waves. Along the coastlines of Cornwall and Portugal's Algarve, incoming waves compress trapped air inside sea caves and blowholes. At Thor's Well in Oregon and the Kiama blowhole in Australia, repeated pressure pulses weaken rock from the inside, accelerating erosion. In these areas, air movement inside rock cavities plays as big a role as water itself. Fact 44. The oceanic pole of cold. The most extreme habitable cold zone on Earth is in Oymyakon, Russia. Because of its valley geography, cold air sinks and gets trapped, creating a frost hollow where temperatures have plummeted to minus 67 degrees Celsius. It's a place where your breath actually turns into ice crystals mid-air, making a sound locals call the whispering of stars. Fact 43. Germany's highest mountain is shared with another country. The Zugspitze is Germany's tallest peak at 2,962 meters, but its summit sits directly on the border with Austria. While it remains the official national high point, climbers at the summit cross are technically standing in two countries at once. To find the tallest mountain located entirely within German territory, you must look to the Watzmann, which is over 200 meters shorter. Fact 42. Fog can be turned into drinking water. In some dry coastal regions, fog carries more usable moisture than rain. Communities in Chile's Atacama Desert and parts of Morocco use fog harvesting, where fog blows through fine mesh nets and tiny droplets condense on the fibers, dripping into collection channels below. These systems can collect up to 200 liters of water per day from a single net, turning clouds into a practical water source where rainfall is rare but fog is frequent. Fact 41. Some lakes never fully mix their water layers. Certain lakes are meromictic, meaning their deep waters never mix with surface layers. Lake Nyos in Cameroon and Mono Lake in California have differences in salinity or temperature that lock layers in place, trapping gases and preserving ancient chemical conditions for centuries. In Lake Nyos, this stratification allowed deadly carbon dioxide to accumulate in the depths until a 1986 eruption killed over 1,700 people. Fact 40. Earth has mountains made almost entirely of coral. Some uplifted coral reefs have been pushed above sea level by tectonic activity, forming limestone mountains. The Makatea Cliffs in French Polynesia and parts of the Philippines' Chocolate Hills are ancient coral reefs now sitting hundreds of feet above sea level. These formations preserve fossilized marine life at high elevations, revealing that parts of today's land were once underwater. Fact 39. Some valleys weaken incoming storms instead of intensifying them. Enclosed basins, such as Death Valley, trap air so effectively that weather systems lose energy upon entering. Winds slow, clouds thin, and storms often decay rather than strengthen. The valley actively disrupts atmospheric motion. Fact 38. The Mediterranean Sea is getting saltier over time. The Mediterranean loses more water to evaporation than it gains from rivers and rainfall. Because its connection to the Atlantic Ocean is narrow, fresh water enters slowly while salt remains behind. Over time, this imbalance causes salinity in parts of the sea to gradually increase. Fact 37. Some glaciers suddenly surge forward. While most glaciers move slowly, some experience surge events where they rapidly accelerate for months or years. Alaska's Hubbard Glacier and Pakistan's Hisbar Glacier have surged forward at speeds up to 100 times their normal rate. These surges are driven by internal pressure and water buildup at the glacier's base, not climate change. Entire landscapes can be reshaped during these sudden advances. Fact 36. Mountains influence the upper atmosphere. As wind flows over large mountain ranges, it creates atmospheric gravity waves, ripples in the air similar to waves on water. These waves can travel upward through the atmosphere, reaching very high altitudes and influencing conditions in the ionosphere, affecting GPS and satellite communication. Fact 35. Some islands migrate inland even if sea levels stay the same. Barrier islands shift landward through storm overwash, where waves push sand from the ocean side to the landward side. North Carolina's Outer Banks and Cedar Island in Virginia have migrated hundreds of meters inland over the past century. Over decades, the entire island slowly walks inland as sediment is repeatedly rearranged, leaving former beach locations now submerged offshore. Fact 34. Some soils emit natural radiation. Not all radiation comes from human sources. Some rocks naturally contain radioactive elements like uranium, thorium, or potassium. The black sand beaches of Guarapari, Brazi, and parts of Kerala, India, have radiation levels up to 50 times higher than normal background levels. When these rocks break down into soil, they can produce higher levels of natural background radiation that residents have safely lived with for generations. Fact 33. Earth has valleys carved almost entirely by wind, not water. In hyper-arid regions like the Atacama Desert, lack of rainfall means wind becomes the dominant sculptor. Fine particles sandblast rock surfaces over immense timescales, shaping valleys without rivers ever forming. Fact 32. The Mediterranean acts like a semi-closed basin. The Mediterranean Sea loses more water to evaporation than it gains from rivers and rain. Its narrow connection to the Atlantic at the Strait of Gibraltar acts like a controlled valve, allowing limited exchange. This balance affects salinity and circulation patterns globally. Fact 31. Lightning helps fertilize soil. The extreme heat of a lightning bolt breaks apart nitrogen molecules in the atmosphere. These form nitrates, which are carried to the ground by rain. This process adds a small but important amount of natural fertilizer to soils and ecosystems. Fact 30. Regions where the sun can cast shadows in opposite directions. In regions near the equator, the sun passes directly overhead during the seasons. This shadow reversal only occurs within the tropics, where the same object can cast shadows northward at one time of year and southward at another. Fact 29. Some lakes are refilled from below, not by rain. While most lakes rely on precipitation, groundwater-fed lakes like Florida's Devil's Den are sustained by deep aquifers and underground springs. Water wells up through bedrock fractures, keeping these basins crystal clear and stable even during extreme surface droughts. This invisible subterranean supply allows the water level to remain constant without a single river or stream feeding into it. Fact 28. There are valleys on Earth that receive little or no direct sunlight. In Antarctica's McMurdo Dry Valleys, some areas experience extremely limited sunlight due to low solar angles and steep surrounding terrain. Parts of these valleys can go for months without direct sunlight, making them some of the coldest environments on the planet. Fact 27. Coral rubble can slowly turn into solid islands. In tropical regions, minerals cement coral reef fragments into limestone-like rock, forming stable island landforms. The Maldives and many islands in the Caribbean, like the Bahamas, were built this way, with broken coral pieces fusing over thousands of years. While birds and vegetation help stabilize these islands, the foundation is geological rather than biological. Fact 26. Earth has landscapes shaped mainly by freeze-thaw, not ice sheets. In periglacial zones, repeated freezing and thawing break rock apart. Over time, this produces stone rivers, patterned ground, and sorted circles, landforms built by temperature cycling rather than moving ice. Fact 25. The world's only freshwater sea. Lake Superior is so massive that it behaves more like an ocean than a lake. It has its own tide, its own weather systems, and rogue waves that can reach 30 feet high. It contains 10% of all the world's surface freshwater. If you tipped it over, it would cover the entire North and South American continents in a foot of water. Fact 24. Some rivers completely vanish underground. In karst landscapes made of soluble limestone, rivers can disappear into underground cave systems. The Trebishnica River flows on the surface, sinks into karst caves, and later re-emerges miles away. The river never stops existing, it simply continues underground. Fact 23. Some landforms only exist because Earth's rotation deflects wind. At large scales, the Coriolis effect subtly bends wind paths, shaping dune orientation and sand transport patterns. In the Sahara Desert and Australia's Simpson Desert, massive linear dunes align parallel to prevailing winds that Earth's rotation has deflected. In these wide desert basins, Earth's rotation helps determine where dunes grow and where sand is stripped away, creating patterns visible from space. Fact 22. Earth's largest delta is built by multiple giant rivers. The Ganges-Brahmaputra Meghna Delta spans India and Bangladesh. Fed by sediment from the Himalayas, it continuously grows and reshapes itself. The delta supports hundreds of millions of people but is also extremely vulnerable to flooding and cyclones. Fact 21. Australia sits on a vast underground ocean. The Great Artesian Basin is one of the largest groundwater systems on Earth, stretching beneath nearly a quarter of Australia. Rain that fell tens of thousands of years ago remains trapped underground today, supplying water to remote communities in otherwise uninhabitable regions. Fact 20. Some mountains grow sideways. Not all mountains grow by rising upward. In places like California's Coast Ranges, movement along strike-slip faults causes the landscape to squeeze and deform laterally, rather than forming tall, sharp peaks. The mountains grow in width rather than height. Fact 19. In Japan, some rivers disappear underground during floods. Japan has built massive underground flood control systems like GCANs. During typhoons, rivers are effectively rerouted into enormous tunnels and storage chambers beneath the city to prevent urban flooding, then released safely once water levels drop. Fact 18. Mountains can gain mass without gaining height. In ranges like the Himalayas, erosion removes material from peaks, but the crust beneath thickens and sinks deeper into the mantle. The mountain's surface height may stay similar, while its total mass and depth increase below ground. Fact 17. In Patagonia, winds are strong enough to bend trees permanently. In parts of Patagonia, persistent high winds blow so consistently that trees grow permanently tilted in one direction. Known as flag trees, their branches and trunks are shaped over decades by constant gusts, making the wind's direction visible in the landscape. Fact 16. There are places where rivers glow at night. At Mosquito Bay, microscopic dinoflagellates emit light when disturbed. As water moves, every wave or swimming fish triggers a blue glow, briefly turning the water neon in the dark. Fact 15. Some coastlines hum. Along certain rocky coastlines, wind passes through natural openings and sea caves. The cliffs of Etretat in France and Scotland's Fingal's Cave produce low humming or vibrating sounds as air rushes through these cracks. The cliffs act like natural wind instruments shaped entirely by geology, with some caves generating tones so consistent they've inspired classical music compositions. Fact 14. Certain deserts exist because nearby oceans are too cold. Cold ocean currents stabilize the atmosphere, preventing rising air and cloud formation. Coastal deserts like the Namib Desert exist not from extreme heat, but from cold water suppressing rainfall inland. Fact 13. Some mountain ranges redirect rivers without blocking them. Rather than forming sharp divides, tilted plateaus can gradually steer rivers sideways over long distances. The Colorado Plateau has redirected the Green River and parts of the San Juan River over millions of years through gentle tilting. The river keeps flowing downhill, but its course bends due to slow uplift instead of a sudden physical barrier. Fact 12. Earth has coastlines that grow rock instead of losing it. In tropical regions, coral reefs and carbonate organisms can add solid material faster than waves remove it. The Great Barrier Reef in Australia and the Florida Keys are actively building limestone coastlines through coral growth and calcification. Over time, biological processes literally build stone coastlines, counteracting erosion through life itself at rates of up to several centimeters per year. Fact 11. Some glaciers slide faster than they flow. While glaciers appear to move as a solid mass, meltwater trapped at the base of giants like Vatnajökull, which covers around 8% of Iceland, acts as a lubricant against the bedrock. This basal sliding allows the foundation of the ice to slip forward much faster than if it were frozen to the ground. This hidden internal speed creates massive tension, causing the slower-moving surface ice to shatter into dangerous crevasses. Fact 10. How seabirds reshape entire islands over time. Large nesting colonies deposit thick layers of guano, which chemically react with coral limestone. This process hardens the surface and gradually raises parts of the island above sea level, transforming barren coral into stable, biologically rich land. Fact 9. Vegetation can accelerate desert formation. In semi-arid regions, shrubs trap wind-blown sand, forming small dunes called nebkas. As sand accumulates, soil dries further and plant roots struggle, allowing desert conditions to expand as the plants stabilize sand in a way that worsens degradation. Fact 8. The Suez Canal works without locks. The Suez Canal was built at sea level, allowing vessels to travel directly between the Mediterranean and the Red Sea because they sit at nearly the same height. The absence of locks allows continuous traffic, but also means saltwater and ecosystems freely mix between the two seas. Fact 7. The breathing forest of Quebec. In certain forests in Quebec, Canada, the ground actually appears to breathe. During heavy storms, the saturated soil becomes loose. As strong winds pull at the trees, their root systems lift the forest floor up and down, making it look like the earth is taking giant rhythmic breaths. Fact 6. Some mountains create their own permanent clouds. Certain isolated peaks regularly generate stationary, lens-shaped lenticular clouds. Mount Rainier in Washington and Mount Fuji in Japan are famous for their persistent lenticular clouds that hover above the summits. Because they regenerate continuously as air flows over the mountain, they often appear anchored to the peak itself even while strong winds pass through. Fact 5. Some coastlines rise instead of sinking after ice melts. In regions once covered by massive ice sheets like parts of Scandinavia and Canada, land is still slowly rising due to post-glacial rebound. As the weight of the ice disappeared, the crust began lifting upward by several millimeters per year. Fact 4. Earth has salt glaciers that flow without ice. In the Zagros Mountains, massive bodies of underground salt creep across the landscape. Because salt behaves plastically under pressure, these glaciers move downhill, driven purely by gravity and their own weight, even at normal surface temperatures. Fact 3. Some rivers are older than the mountains they cut through. Certain rivers, such as the Colorado River, began flowing before the surrounding mountains rose. As tectonic uplift occurred, the rivers maintained their course by cutting downward at the same rate the land rose, carving canyons rather than being diverted. Fact 2. Some lakes slowly migrate across the land over decades. In Arctic regions with permafrost, uneven thawing causes certain lakes to collapse on one side, while new ground freezes on the other. Over the years, the lake shifts laterally across the landscape, effectively walking across the terrain. Fact 1. Yemen has skyscrapers that are 500 years old. Shibam, Yemen, is known as the Manhattan of the desert, due to its 16th century high-rises built entirely from mud bricks. These structures reach up to 11 stories high, making them the world's oldest apartment buildings and proving vertical urbanism existed long before modern steel. Because they are made of earth, the walls must be meticulously replastered after every rainy season to prevent the city from eroding. The world is way stranger than it looks on a map. Which fact shocked you the most? Drop it in the comments below, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.